You're listening to Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Olivia's Book Club. And I'm still your host, Olivia Fierro, and the month of May is upon us already. Can you believe it?
Right now,
that means the kids are going to be out of school soon. And that kind of stresses
in
me
real
out, but
life,
it's exciting too. We love this month. And for our first episode of the month, we have got a first for you, a debut novelist. The book is called Love Buzz, and you are definitely going to hear a lot of buzz about it. It's published by Harper Perennial, and it comes out in paperback to a shelf near you May the 2nd. So I've seen some buzz on this book already on Goodreads and all of it in my email inbox, but I wanted to give credit where credit is due and let you know why I had to read this book. Was because of a recommendation of a friend of mine. So Chelsea, this is for you. You can find Chelsea on Instagram, Chelsea Hudson Reads. She got an early copy, and she wrote in her review of this, and had to send it to me when she insisted I read it, quote, "Did I just read the perfect romance? Yes. Was it about a woman finding and falling in love with herself? Also, yes." She also asked that I facilitate a friendship between the Arizona-based author and herself. So I don't know. I don't want to be total stalker, but we'll see if I can make that work. We'll begin with a conversation with that author. And I'm so excited to have you, Neely Tubati Alexander, joining in real life here in our Phoenix studio, because you are now Arizona-based. You're a Sun Devil. So like many people who come from a slightly cooler climate, you came to the Tempe campus and you never left.
Exactly. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Thank you. This is exciting.
Congratulations. Now, Chelsea was not exaggerating. This book is really great, and there is so much that I want to dig in about it. But first, tell me a little bit about yourself and how long you have had the dream of becoming a published writer.
Sure. So, first of all, Chelsea's very kind. Thank you. That was a really fun review to see. This is, as a debut, it's new to start to see reviews and hear people talking about it. So that was really fun to see. But yeah, I think I wanted to write my whole life. And it was always this sort of one day dream, right? One day I'll write the book. One day I'll do this. And like a lot of authors, I had folders on my computer of, started drafts that I never finished and, books that were sort of in various stages of completion. And when COVID hit, like a lot of people, I found myself with a lot of time and wanting something that felt good and, had a lot of opportunity for creative flow. I had a child who was in online kindergarten. I had another toddler, and both my husband and I were working from home. So I would lock myself in our guest room and, kind of viewed it as self-care time. And really, that was the first time that I really started to take it seriously. And that book, I ended up in the drawer. It was a book that I didn't end up publishing, but it led to ultimately to Love Buzz too. So
isn't it funny to have something so positive come out of such a stressful time when we really had no time for ourselves, but you're forced to find that space, that closed door, that whatever it is that gives you a little bit of relief and takes you outside of the ever-shrinking world at that time.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. And I really did view it as self-care during that time. It was the thing I looked forward to. And one of the things that was so important then and now is having something to look forward to, right? And look ahead to. So it was a really crucial time, I think.
Okay, so is that a book you'll return to, that it has some elements worth revisiting, or we've dumped it and it lit it on fire in the trash?
I didn't light it on fire. It is deep in the drawer, though. I did strip it for parts, I will say.
Okay.
So never a wasted time, right? I took parts that I really loved, lines that I really loved, even scenes that I really loved, and kind of gave them a new life. Some of it's in Love Buzz, some of it's in the other books that'll be coming. So I don't feel like it was a waste at all.
Okay, so let's talk about Love Buzz. It feels fresh. It reads really quickly, and it has a lot of depth. So would you call it women's fiction, or is it technically rom-com, or what? I guess it's romance. I used to really stay away from romance because I just did not understand the beauty of the guaranteed happily ever after. I was like, well, if you know what's happening at the end, what's the point? Until I started to read them and understand how varied the stories can be and how much character development is required to make it a good book.
Yeah, I made it really hard for marketing to be able to figure out what to do with this book.
It's
right?
all the things.
It's a little bit of all of the things. And, truly it's a women's fiction story at the end of the day, right? It is the story of Serena and her journey to living an authentic life and living her life for herself and not for others. And the romance component is just a catalyst for that. So I'd say technically it's women's fiction, but it sits really nicely on the shelf between romance and women's fiction. And I think has a little bit of both, and for fans of both of those spaces. So, but again, I made it really difficult for marketing. And I definitely have seen, romance readers have very high expectations and very specific expectations of what they want out of their books. And so, I try to be very clear. It is a women's fiction novel with rom-com elements, but
yes.
A little bit hopefully for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's talk about the main character, because Serena is giving us just so much to relate to and to be excited about. She's a woman of color. She is somebody who has overcome a tremendous heartbreak. She lost her mom while she was in college. Really, the heart and soul of kind of the guiding light of her life and many of the decisions. And she is approaching a significant birthday. And like many women, we do a lot of dramatic tripping out over a significant birthday. I do this every year, by the way. But she's approaching 30. And she is also approaching an article, an honor that's bestowed upon her from her alma mater that is going to feature what her life is like at 30. So the levels of expectation are not just personal and private and dealing with maybe disappointments of my life isn't what I pictured it would look like, but it's going to be published for all to see. So tell me about how you came up with that particular intensifier for Serena and who she is to you.
Yeah, I remember turning 30 and feeling like it was such a big milestone. And, you're still so young, but at the time it doesn't feel that way. And you feel like you should have everything figured out. And, whatever expectation you have of I should be at this certain point in my life. And if you're not there, it can feel like, you're never going to get there, or that you're a failure, or whatever that looks like. And then you magnify that on a larger platform. And I would say social media even is the same thing, right? Regardless of whether you're being featured in an alumni magazine. So there's a lot of external pressure that we place on ourselves. And not to give anything away of the book, but really what we find out is no one really is paying as close of attention as you are, right? Or as you think they are to your life. They're more concerned with themselves. Everyone's more concerned with what they're doing and where they are in their lives, rather than focusing on what you're doing and where you are in your life. And so I think it was just a really great opportunity to kind of cathartic in a way,
yeah.
right? To go through that with a character of her coming to that realization for herself.
Yeah, and Serena has done everything right in terms of she's got that first generation immigrant family perspective of I'm going to college so that I have security, so that I have a career that's always going to pay the bills. It's not for my growth or happiness. It's about something that is reliable.
Right.
And she's finding herself kind of at an impasse, asking, has all of this work led me to where I really want to be?
Yeah, and that's my story as well. I'm the daughter of immigrants. I'm a first generation American, and there is a different level of expectation in terms of what it means to be successful. My parents came here with nothing from India, and they built incredible lives. And so I'm on a different side of privilege from them. So it's hard to relate to, right? Because I grew up with all of these things. And so still having that same work ethic and ability to, and drive and kind of ability to achieve these same things coming from a very different place is interesting. It's an interesting conversation, right? And so I certainly felt for her and could relate to her, Serena, the character, in terms of wanting to fulfill expectation, but also growing up in a very different experience and very different environment than what her parents did.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a very relatable sort of internal push and pull that many of us experience. It's what your parents would want you to do, and it doesn't matter at what age you are. I mean, she's a grown woman, and even when her mother is gone, you're thinking to yourself, what would they want? This isn't what they would want for me. They wouldn't understand this choice. So you're trying to still make choices based upon being a pleaser to make your parents proud of you,
right,
or your community proud of you. And oftentimes that can lead somebody to feel like I'm living a very inauthentic life.
And it's a lot of pressure, right? And you can't argue with someone who's no longer here or justify your decisions, right? So all you're left with is sort of the remnants of what you believe they thought and what they thought. And they're not here to evolve or grow or change with you as you go through that experience. So I think in some ways it's more difficult to make those decisions with a parent who's no longer here than if you have a parent who's here who you can bring on the journey with you, right?
There's so much to Serena that is just so relatable. She's at that time in her life where she's involved in a wedding, and many of us can recall certain stages where I felt like my whole life was other people's weddings. I mean, it was just non-stop. Yes. And then it magnifies, I got married later, and it magnifies, whoa, wait, I'm not, none of this is for me. Like, what am I doing wrong? And you know, to have the enthusiasm to be spending a fortune and all of your days off and all of the things on all of these celebrations. So take me to Mardi Gras and give us our meet cute a little bit.
So the book starts with Serena on the last night of her bachelorette party for her estranged cousin. So there's already some feels involved with being on this trip as it is. She's not a fan of the maid of honor. And so all of the standard bachelorette dynamics are at play that come to be in a wedding, right? Because it's not necessarily all of your friends when you're a bridesmaid. It's someone else's friends and you're all coming together. And on the last night of the trip, she meets Julian. And they have this sort of instant kismet, serendipitous type of connection, at least according to her. And their interaction gets cut short rather abruptly. And so she goes back home to Seattle, kind of still thinking about this guy and this interaction, and decides she's going to find him. And they, you know, based on the few clues that she has from their conversation about who he is. And so he is in a lot of ways the catalyst for her making a lot of life changes and life decisions. And so, you know, but the banter and the interaction with them in the beginning is really fun to write, because it's my favorite thing to write is banter, romantic banter, but in those types of scenes. So that one was really fun.
You can just see and feel the sparks flying off the page, and they're funny and cute and they're sassy with each other, and it's just not a traditional, you know, it's not a sanitized flirtation. It's appropriate to the setting. And generally speaking, if anybody has been to Mardi Gras, and I will say that back in the day I did go 2 years in a row,
Nice.
which is very revealing about me. But it's not where you expect to meet your forever dude.
Yeah, and I like the idea of it being a little unexpected, right? And they're in sort of this very like party scene, smelly, you know, there's a lot going on, and it's not romantic in any capacity. And so the whole idea of them meeting and one of the themes of the book is what happens if the right person comes along at the wrong time?
Yeah.
And are you prepared in your life to deal with that? And what are you willing to sort of blow up your life to take a chance or two? And so, you know, I think the meet cute is representative of that it happens in a space that is not necessarily the perfect environment for it. Yeah.
I laugh so hard over just the descriptions of what you're seeing out at the bars, and you know, bar after bar after bar, and it's all basically the same thing.
Yes.
And the walls are sticky and the floors are sticky and everything smells a little bit like puke and pee.
Pretty much, yeah.
Did you research this?
I have not been to Mardi Gras.
What?
I know. I need to go.
Well,
so
you really are a great writer, because you
Thank
definitely
you.
put us there.
Well, that's always the fear, right?
Yeah.
Is that you're writing a place you don't know. Have you done enough research, and are you accurately depicting it? I do want to go. I think it would be really fun. But I did research. I talked to people who've been. And the thing that you're always trying to capture in a location, regardless of where it is sort of the things that you would only experience from being there, which is hard, right? If you've never been. The smells, the sights, the things that happen in kind of the quiet moments even. So but yeah, it was very fun to write. Made me want to go for sure.
So as you're working on Love Buzz, and you go through the traditional querying the publishers, I presume, and stuff. And I mean, when you finished the book, first of all, how different was your first draft, or your draft that you submitted to publishers, from what we're reading now as your debut? How much did it evolve kind of with those other hands? And also, like, when you finished, did you know, like, I got it? Like, this is going to sell. This feels good.
So no to the latter. Definitely not. I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that question, is what I'm finding out from publishing. And not because they don't believe in something, but just there's so much kind of X factor involved, and luck. Some of it's luck, some of it's, unexpected, and it's very much a bit of a crapshoot, in terms of what's successful and what's not. Even from publishers who have so much experience and so much knowledge of the space, you just can't guarantee what readers are going to do or what they're going to respond to, and that's some of the magic of this space. But in terms of querying, so the draft changed significantly because you go through as a debut, you query agents, you get an agent, you work with them on edits. Then you go on submission to publishers, and then you work with the editor there on edits, right? So it definitely goes through the gamut from an editorial perspective. So it's changed quite a bit. There was a lot more interiority in the beginning, and we knew we needed to pull more kind of out of in her head and into real life and into scenes. So there was a lot of that changed. And then we worked to get Julian on the page a little bit more, kind of in the in-between moments too.
There are delightful supporting characters, and part of what I think makes Serena a great main character is the people who surround her and understand her, and she obviously is doing a lot of required to do some self-reflection because she has been through heartbreak, and I think we all have to, the way we remember things, of course, we oftentimes realize that vision and perception was very skewed by our own emotions, by maybe our immaturity, or just by what we were experiencing intensely at the time, and everybody else's recollection of that time period is very different. But she is blessed with a really phenomenal best friend who is super fun, that the reader wants to hang out with, and she also has the delight of meeting a stranger who becomes very important in her life, and it's making me rethink my travel strategy because I am a hard never speak to anybody on an airplane, and if I could meet somebody like Odette, then maybe I need to change my ways.
It's so funny. Someone who posted about the book on, I think it was on Instagram, and they said, are you someone who talks to people on planes? And most people were like, absolutely not. I avoid them at all costs. So it was interesting to hear that. I'm usually not either, right? I tend to put the headphones in, head down, working on stuff. No, don't make eye contact, right? But yeah, I think Odette, so you're talking about Odette, who is an older woman from Louisiana. And, I loved the idea of a spunky, older character. We as a society tend to discard people after a certain age, and women in particular. And I loved that she could be a voice of reason and say outlandish things at the same time, and be someone that could sort of take this place of her mom because she didn't have her anymore in sort of in a very unconventional way. But yeah, I liked writing that because it's very fun to write a character who says the things that we kind of think but can't really say, and who just will say it anyway. So that's a fun release.
That's one of the perks that comes with age.
Right.
And so this kind of group of people who get a lot of joy and support from each other eventually. There's a lot of representation there. If we believe that it's important to see characters of diverse backgrounds and lifestyles, you pack a lot into this book.
Thank you. Yeah, the diversity is important. And one of the things that I set out to do, and I've said from the beginning, kind of through this journey with everyone involved from the production standpoint, so at the publisher with my agent, was that I wanted representation, but I didn't want it to be a race book.
Yeah.
And that was really important, right? I think publishing has made a lot of strides in adding more diversity and representation into their world. But we've also you see sometimes, and my publisher certainly didn't do this, I want to be clear about that, but we also have seen people sort of get pushed into tell a story about what it's like to be, Indian in America or whatever it is in America. And
that's a big burden.
It's
a big story to tell.
It's a huge story to tell, but also it's not the only story, right? So I wanted stories, and I would say like a Jasmine Guillory does a great job of this, right? Where it's not about what is it like to be Black and in love in America. No, it's just a love story, and the characters happen to be diverse. And so that was really important to me, that it was accessible in that way, where it didn't feel like, because I'm not fill in the blank, then this book is not for me. I wanted it to feel accessible and happen to have, diversity in character. So that was one of the few things that I had a clear vision for kind of going into the process.
Yeah, and very well done. One of the things that she's wrestling with, of course, approaching this birthday is, telling her story and having looked at this tradition of this feature of Life at 30, which would always, of course, have been the aspirational, members of the previous graduating classes of a university, right? We want to show off that life at this university puts you on a road to success. So it's the perfect family, the perfect job, money, glamorous engagement photos, whatever. Yeah. What would you say to yourself, say the ASU college version of you, if you had the perspective today of here you are, you're starting to tour for your first novel, you're married, you've got 2 kids at home, you've got a business, but you managed to make this dream come true, and it's launching an entire new phase of your destiny.
Yeah, well, when you say it like that, it sounds pretty cool.
It is cool.
Well, no, I mean, I think I would say it's never a straight line, right? And I think we have an expectation, or at least I did when I was younger, that it's a straight line. You do this and you get this, and then you go to the next thing and you go to the next thing, and the goalpost moves. And reality, it's like this, right? And it's back and forth, and it's never a straight line. And so I would say it is not going to be the way that you get there that you would have expected, but that ultimately this, like so many things and so many things that are worth going after, it's the grit and sort of the determination of just keeping going, right? And that's ultimately where you'll be. But yeah, it's a really exciting time. I'm trying to take it all in. You only debut once, right? So, I'm already working on book 2, and it's a very different experience just because I've done some of these things already before. So I'm really trying to just take it all in. And, I'm someone who, I think a lot of achievers, quote unquote, are like this, right? Where you are always sort of moving the needle of, okay, great, I got that. Now what's next? And I'm really trying to not, play that game and just sort of be present and say, okay, I'm grateful for what is happening in this moment, and not think about kind of what comes next, which is difficult. It can be difficult, but I'm really trying to enjoy the time.
So you are working on book 2, and you have an idea already for 3. Is this you already have the book deal for this?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get a 2-book deal when we signed for Love Buzz with Harper Perennial. So book 2 is coming out in March of 2024, which is exciting. So we are deep in edits right now for that one. And then hopefully we'll be moving to things like cover design and whatnot soon. Yeah.
And that's a separate book or
separate
a sequel?
Book. Okay. Yeah, no sequel. I don't know that, I'd never say never, right? But I don't know that I could write a sequel. You spend so much time with these characters and going through editing. You're so sick of the book by the time you're done, through the process. So to spend more time with them just feels really daunting. I would rather move on to something new.
And you truly explored them so well. So now I do always enjoy as a reader the authors who do the little Easter eggs of, peripheral character pops up, and that's how we put people in the same kind of world without it being much.
Yes, that's funny you say that because I'm going through edits now. I'm trying to get them turned in before I go kind of on my official tour. So I'm not also working on editing at the same time, but I just threw in a little Easter egg for Love Buzz into the next one, which is fun. It's fun to throw in because if some people will recognize it, some people won't.
Exactly. Yeah. And nothing's lost when they don't, but for the people who find it, really love it.
Exactly.
It makes all of these characters and these worlds that you're creating feel very real. Right? Yeah. He'll feel grounded somewhere. And I always think that that's a big treat. Before we wrap up, we've got to talk about the musical references through the course of this book. And I certainly hope that part of your PR campaign is a pretty kick-ass playlist, right?
I did make a playlist. I made the playlist way back when I was querying, so I need to update it because chapters have changed and whatnot, so I need to make those updates. But yes, there is a very fun playlist.
Can you tell a little bit about some of the references or how it might relate to the title of the book?
Yeah, so Love Buzz is a Nirvana song title. The story is based in Seattle, which Nirvana is a very Seattle-based band. And fun fact, so the font on the cover is actually the Nirvana logo font as well. That was my one contribution to the cover was it would be cool if we did the same font. And it's really, I say in the acknowledgments that the book in a lot of ways is sort of an homage to my hometown of Seattle. So there's a lot of references to Seattle culture, and Nirvana is one of the most, I grew up in Seattle in the 90s. So that was during kind of the grunge, the peak of grunge Seattle era. So yeah, it's a bit of nostalgia for me too.
Oh, I loved it too, because that was my music, and so it was definitely an extra layer of enjoyment through the course of reading Love Buzz. Well, I just cannot recommend this book enough. It really does have all of the elements that make it much more broadly appealing than most. I think certainly romance or rom-coms. It's got a lot of smarts and a lot of heart and a lot of feeling, and you're certainly rooting for our main character of Serena and really everybody who's in her world. Start to finish. So Neely Tubati, Alexander, congratulations, and thank you so much for coming in to talk to me about your debut novel. You should just be saying that all the time. Your debut novel. It's so exciting.
Thank you. So fun.
Congratulations. It's really great. Thanks for listening to Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Fierro. Our producer is Margaret Stewart. You can send us an email with your thoughts or your book recommendations. Olivia's Book Club at azfamily.com is the address. And you can check out Olivia's Book Club on Facebook or find us on Instagram. Hello, Bookstagrammers, at olivias.bookclub. And Margaret is at Overbooked and Overdue. Make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast and tell your friends. You can find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music.
This is Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.